And not always easy being a teacher. Just ask our own Andrew Doyle, who was one. The holidays are good, but during term time there is a mountain of homework to mark. It takes charisma to maintain class discipline and an engaging manner to counter rival distractions, not least from the ubiquitous smartphone. And according to the headmaster of one top private school, teachers are now, quote, incredibly anxious about being denounced by their pupils. It's not quite the killing fields of Cambodia with Khmer Rouge kids sniffing out enemies of the revolution, but there is a whiff of year zero nonetheless. These are pupils who are increasingly aware that they can land a teacher they dislike in hot water. Nicholas Hewlett, headmaster of St Dunstan's College in South East London, said teachers see a, quote, righteous generation of children looking for their teachers to trip up, who are looking for microaggressions. Mr Hewlett is not alone. Last week, the Chief Inspector of Schools, Amanda Spielman, warned about a new wave of activism in schools, with self-appointed moral guardians challenging the traditional balance of authority between those who are taught and those who teach. Andrew Doyle is still here. He's no longer a teacher.
No.
Is that relevant?
Oh, well, only insofar as when I left teaching, which is a number of years ago now, I'd reached the point where I thought I wouldn't advise anyone to go into this career now. It's kind of perilous because children have always lied to get their teachers into trouble, you know, and we've all been children, so we know that as a child you will lie to get out of trouble no matter what happens. Now, the teachers' unions have always had this trouble with false allegations because the vast majority of allegations against teachers turn out to be false.
And the process works against a teacher. Sometimes the kids know that, don't they? Make the allegation, the teacher's suspended.
Yeah,
no evidence needed at that stage.
For child protection purposes, the teacher has to be suspended straight away pending investigation. The children know this. It gives them an incredible amount of power. Now, that's not to say that, you know, there are incidents where teachers do abuse their power and do behave incredibly badly and often criminally, right? And those things have to be taken seriously. So I sympathise with the schools having to take the allegations seriously. But where the unions struggle is that, of course, it gives a lot of power to malicious complaints coming from children who want to get out of trouble. Now, by suggesting that we're going to give a list of microaggressions to children and say that you should complain about these, you're just making the problem a whole lot worse. People might not know what microaggressions are.
Here's your moment.
Okay, well, the idea is that it's when you say something inadvertently offensive, okay? So, for instance, you sneeze and I say, God bless you. That might be offensive if you're an atheist and you don't believe in God, right? That would be an example of a microaggression.
Might be offensive if you see the contents of my handkerchief.
That would be terribly offensive, exactly. You should keep that to yourself under all circumstances. But other things like if you were to say, where are you from, to a person of colour, that kind of thing. So,
and what about this about raising eyebrows?
Oh, well, the raising eyebrows thing came about in May. That was at Cambridge University, where the university published a list of potential microaggressions and actually invited staff and students to report on people for them. And they weren't limiting it to language. They extended it to body language. So raising eyebrows at a person of colour was considered perhaps a racial microaggression, along with the linguistic things like calling a woman girl and things like that. Now, of course, the thing about this is the phrase microaggression gets it wrong because if it is inadvertent, it's perfectly possible, by the way, to inadvertently cause offence by being thoughtless with your language. No one's denying that. That's one of the oldest parts of the human story, isn't it? We're offensive without realising all the time. Well, of course, but the best way to handle that is to say, look, could we have a conversation about that troubled me a bit or whatever, not to report someone Stasi style to the authorities and get them punished for it. And so I worry about this because it's not actually aggressive. If it is inadvertent, then by definition it's not aggressive. So I think this is a problem. But also this inviting people to police people's body language is bound to end in tears. If you go back to even April 2017, in fact, at Oxford University, they published a list. I think it was a newsletter of microaggressions, similarly inviting people to complain. But one of them was avoiding eye contact. That was seen as a microaggression. They had to apologise and backtrack, and of course it was because autistic people often find it difficult to maintain eye contact. So the reason they backtracked was because this was considered ableist. So, you know, I mean, they're bound to get themselves into trouble with this, trying to interpret each other's body language. In fact, I don't know if you remember this, at Sheffield University, this was, I think it was last year, the university was paying students £9.34 an hour to spy on their peers and to report any microaggressions, and they were openly inviting this. This, of course, is wide open to exploitation. Anyone who wants to settle a score, this is how you're going to do it. But also, you're going to start noticing offence where it's not there. And Andrew, there's no linkage at all between the, in quotes, offence and the punishment. You know, it can be just a malicious complaint by a pupil, ends up with teacher being suspended, ends up with teacher's record being, you know, marked, and that follows through the magic of Google
for the remainder of his or her career. So there's no connection. Now, ordinarily, when justice is served, there's a process that we rely on that's been refined for hundreds of years, from the common law all the way through. This is just something that's been dreamed up on a campus in America, and now we bought it, hook, line and sinker.
It's very damaging because what a lot of people don't realise is that the process in of itself is a form of punishment, you know? Now, I spoke...
Lisa Keogh, you're going to mention...
Yes, I am going to mention Lisa
I wondered if you would.
I interviewed Lisa Keogh on my show on Saturday. Now, she's a young woman who was a student at Abertay University in Dundee. In Dundee. And she was punished because she said in a seminar that women have vaginas. Women are born with vaginas, and that women tend to be the weakest, as in men tend to be stronger physically than women. These are not controversial statements because they happen to be true. She went through a disciplinary investigation after complaints were made by people who were anonymous, that she didn't know who they were. And she said she's been through hell. It's been really traumatic. And she won't even go to her graduation now because she just feels so distant. She was not supported by anyone, by staff members, by the university itself. It's a really awful situation, and I think we need to remind ourselves again and again that the investigation process is punitive, it is stressful, and it is often enacted as a form of revenge.
And as you say, the process itself can be a form of punishment. Andrew, as ever, thanks very much indeed. Thanks a lot.